the endless red dunes of the outer deserts lay a ship unlike any other seen by humans, or recorded in any book or report. It had been there for centuries, half buried in sand and rock, its surface corroded and worn by the relentless winds of time. People who lived in nearby settlements called it the Silent Giant, because it did not move or make any sound, yet held an air of mystery that could not be ignored. Travelers and wanderers often passed by without giving it much attention, but there was one young man who could not resist its pull. His name was Evan, and he had been coming to the Silent Giant every week for as long as he could remember. Evan was not a soldier or a scientist. He was a mechanic by trade, but an explorer at heart. He had always felt a strange connection to machines, and anything abandoned or forgotten seemed to speak to him in ways others could not understand. Every visit, Evan brought something with him. Sometimes it was tools, sometimes a notebook, sometimes simply himself sitting in the sand and watching the strange angles of the ship against the setting sun. The surface of the Silent Giant was covered with symbols that glowed faintly under moonlight, and he spent hours sketching them, trying to make sense of what they could mean. There were curves and lines that seemed impossible to create by any human hand, and even now, the way they shimmered faintly as the wind brushed against them made Evan feel as though the ship was alive in some way he could not explain. He had studied every inch he could reach over the years. The doors were sealed with heavy metal that resisted all attempts at opening, and yet something inside told him it was waiting for him. Sometimes at night he would dream of the ship lights flickering inside and of voices he could not understand calling his name. When he awoke, he felt a strange longing, as if he had to return. One particular morning he woke before dawn and knew he could not resist. He gathered his notebook, his tools, and a small pack of food and water and set out into the dunes. The wind was cooler than usual, carrying with it the scent of metal and sand. He arrived at the Silent Giant as the sun rose and painted the dunes with shades of gold and crimson. Evan spent hours examining the surface of the ship. The runes and symbols seemed to shift slightly as he traced them with his fingers. A feeling of unease mixed with excitement settled in his chest. He had no idea what he was about to discover yet. He felt certain that today something would change. He set his pack down and began sketching the intricate patterns, unaware that the wind was picking up and that the dunes around him were beginning to move as though they were alive. The air felt thick and almost musical in its vibrations, and Evan stopped writing to listen. There was a low hum coming from deep inside the hull, something that had never been there before. His heart pounded and his fingers shook with anticipation. He took a cautious step toward the ship, and the hum grew louder, vibrating in the soles of his feet and hands. Suddenly a faint blue glow appeared along the edges of the runes. They pulsed softly as if breathing. Evan froze in place and watched the glow expanded, slowly moving along the hull like veins of light flowing through the metal. Then he heard a sound that made him stumble back. A voice, soft, melodic, and distinctively feminine, whispered, "You came back." The voice was not loud, but it carried through the air with a clarity that made Evan feel both terrified and drawn to it. He could not see anyone, but the sound was real, as though it came from within the ship itself. He wanted to run but could not move. The sand shifted beneath him as if responding to the presence of the voice, and the wind seemed to hush around him. He felt the pull of the ship stronger than ever before. Evan took a deep breath and stepped closer to the glow. The metal doors that had always been sealed now seemed to pulse with anticipation. He reached out a hand but did not touch them. Instead, he studied the patterns running along the surface, trying to understand what they meant. Each rune seemed to resonate with his touch, sending a small jolt of energy through his fingers. He realized that the ship was testing him or welcoming him or something else entirely. He did not know yet. He felt chosen in a way he had never experienced before. Hours passed as he examined the runes and the faint lines of light running through the hull. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Evan noticed a shadow moving within the ship. He squinted to see more clearly and realized that there was a movement inside that seemed alive. He could not tell if it was a reflection or something real, but his intuition told him it was real. He pressed closer and noticed faint images forming against the metal wall. They looked like figures, tall and graceful, moving with purpose but fading when he blinked. He felt a shiver run down his spine. This was not just a ship. It was a message, a living memory, or perhaps a guardian waiting for him. As evening approached, the glow from the runes became stronger, casting long shadows across the dunes. Evan sat down at the base of the ship, his notebook on his lap, and tried to make sense of what had happened today. He realized that the voice had not just spoken to him, but that it had awakened something inside the ship and perhaps inside him as well. He could feel a pulse coming from the hull, as if the heart of the silent giant had started to beat. His mind raced with questions and possibilities. Who had built this ship? Why was it here? What did the voice mean? And most importantly, what did it want from him? The wind carried the scent of metal and something sweet and earthy. He closed his eyes and listened to the hum growing louder. He felt an unusual warmth in his chest and a strange calm washing over him. The ship was alive and aware, and it had acknowledged his presence. He realized that his visits until now had been preparation. Each step, each sketch, each moment spent in the sand had led to this awakening. He felt a mix of fear and exhilaration as the light pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Night fell and the glow from the runes illuminated the dunes, casting the silent giant in a haunting and beautiful light. Evan stayed until the stars filled the sky, watching the ship and feeling its presence around him. He knew that he would not leave empty-handed. This was the beginning of something larger than him, larger than any story or legend he had known. Made camp beside the ship and watched the stars. The voice spoke again, this time only in his mind. "Welcome," he whispered. To himself, "You are not alone." The realization settled deep within him that he had become part of a story far older and more mysterious than anything he had ever imagined. The silent giant had chosen him, and he would follow where it led, even into the unknown. Days passed, and Evan returned to the silent giant as he always did. He brought tools and scanners with him, hoping to understand more of what had happened the day the ship first spoke. He had barely slept the night before, filled with dreams of voices and lights moving inside the hull. His curiosity was stronger than any fear. He arrived before dawn and stood once more in front of the massive doors which had pulsed with blue light during his last visit. He walked along the hull, examining the runes and symbols. They seemed to change slightly under his gaze, forming new lines and curves. He ran his hands along them, feeling a hum of energy vibrate through his fingers. Unlike before, there was no audible voice yet. He felt the presence of someone, or something inside. He believed that the ship itself had a mind, and that mind was aware of him. He spoke softly to the ship, hoping it could hear. "I am here again." Hours passed, and Evan used his scanners to map the interior as much as possible. The devices beeped and whirred but returned readings that made little sense. To him, the interior seemed alive. It shifted in ways that should have been impossible. Hallways that were once blocked seemed open, and light appeared in corridors that had always been dark. He felt drawn forward, guided by an invisible hand. At the heart of the ship, he discovered a chamber made of clear material, glowing faintly from within. A mist filled the space, and inside a figure formed slowly from light. She was tall, with silver hair and eyes like gold. She had pointed ears, and her presence was calm yet commanding. Evan felt a shiver as if standing before royalty. She looked directly at him and smiled. "I am Alara," she said. "My companion is Nerith, a star dragon. You were not meant to find this place." Evan realized he was speaking with an intelligence beyond human. He tried to speak, but no words came out. His mind seemed to be linked to hers in some strange way. She explained that her world had fallen long ago in a war with beings known only as the Harvesters. Her ship had escaped here, carrying her and her dragon companion in suspended states. Evan listened in awe as she described battles and worlds lost. He could not imagine such power and sorrow, yet there was a kindness in her voice that made him feel safe even though danger lingered. He understood that she needed him for reasons he did not yet comprehend. As she spoke, the chamber pulsed with light and small images flashed before Evan. He saw cities in ruin, dragons flying through the sky, and soldiers of light fighting enemies of unimaginable form. He realized that Alara had lived through all of this. She had been the last guardian, and now something from her past had awakened again. The air around him shimmered and a hum filled the chamber. He felt as if he were standing in the center of a heartbeat, larger than any he had known. The ship responded to Alara, and through her to him. He understood that the silent giant and the elf woman were one in purpose. She explained that the ship had been waiting for someone who could help awaken the systems and protect what remained. Days passed as Evan learned to navigate the strange controls of the ship guided by Alara. His mind slowly adapted to the alien symbols and sequences. She showed him how to power certain sections and how to read the flows of energy that moved through the hull. The more he learned, the more he understood the bond between Alara and her dragon companion. It was not a simple friendship, but a connection that was deep and powerful. One evening, as the sun set and the red dunes glowed, Evan watched the figure of Alara flicker in the chamber. He realized that her presence was tied to the ship itself. Her form seemed solid yet transparent, as if she were both there and not there at the same time. She reached out and touched his hand, not physically but through the light, and he felt warmth and reassurance. "I need you to understand the danger," she said. "The harvesters will return and this world is unprepared. You can help me awaken the power of my people." Evan nodded, unsure how he could accomplish such a task. He felt small and ordinary compared to the memory and presence of Alara. Yet he trusted her, and he knew he could not turn away. As he explored deeper sections of the ship, he discovered rooms filled with artifacts and devices unlike any human creation. There were crystals that pulsed with energy, panels covered in alien writing and storage, compartments containing remnants of her civilization. Each item seemed to hum with a story, and Evan could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. He began to spend hours in meditation, following Alara's guidance, learning to sense the flows of energy that moved through the ship. The hum of the silent giant became familiar, a rhythm that matched his own heartbeat. He felt his mind expand in ways he could not explain, and his understanding of the universe began to change. He was no longer a mere mechanic in a desert. He was a part of something ancient and powerful. One night, as he rested beside the glowing hull, the wind carried a sound unlike any before. It was a distant roar, yet melodic and full of life. It stirred something deep inside him, and he felt a connection to Alara and the dragon he had yet to see. He understood that the awakening was not just of the ship, but of beings that had been dormant for centuries. The voice spoke again softly within his mind. "Do not fear, Evan. It is your courage that binds us." He smiled and closed his eyes, feeling a sense of purpose he had never known. Before him lay the beginning of a journey that would lead to war and wonder, and the discovery of powers far beyond humanity. He knew he could not walk away. In the days that followed, Evan continued to study, repair, and awaken parts of the silent giant under Alara's guidance. The ship responded to his efforts, glowing brighter and opening new pathways for exploration. He realized that every step he took brought him closer to the dragon and to the legacy of Alara's people. The desert around him was quiet yet alive with the resonance of the ship, and he felt that the world had shifted forever as the sun set. On another day, Evan gazed at the glowing runes and whispered to himself, "I am ready for whatever comes next." Evan returned to the silent giant each day filled with anticipation. His work with Alara had begun to reveal the hidden powers of the ship. The corridors that had been dark now glowed with a gentle light, and strange mechanisms moved with silent precision. His hands trembled with excitement as he touched controls that had not been used in centuries. Alara guided him with patience and care. Her image flickered with life and presence. She spoke of Nareth, the star dragon, a being of immense power and beauty who had been placed in suspended animation until the time came for awakening. Evan could sense the connection between the elf and her dragon. Even through the projections and controls, he felt that his role was to prepare the way for Nareth's return. The power core of the silent giant was a crystal of pure energy embedded deep within the hull. Its surface shimmered with colors that Evan had no names for. He followed Alara's instructions, carefully adjusting the controls, calibrating the energy flow, and monitoring the crystal as it began to respond to his touch. The hum of the ship grew louder, filling the chambers with a vibration that seemed to resonate through the desert itself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the dunes, Evan completed a critical adjustment. The crystal pulsed, sending waves of energy outward across the desert. The sky above lit up in a display of brilliant colors. That display was visible for miles, signaling to the world that something ancient had awakened. Satellite sensors picked up the readings, and soon human forces began to notice something unusual in the region. Elara warned him that this awakening could not be hidden for long. She spoke of mercenaries, scientists, and military, units who would be drawn to the energy signature of the silent giant. She explained that their intentions would not all be good, and that they would try to take control of what they did not understand. Evan felt a mixture of fear and determination. He knew that he had to help protect the ship, the Elf, and the Dragon as night fell. The chamber filled with mist and a low hum reverberated through the hull. Evan watched in awe as a cryo chamber slowly opened, revealing Nareth. The dragon was magnificent. His scales shimmered with light. His eyes burned with intelligence and power. He stretched massive wings and emitted a roar that shook the sands around the silent giant. Evan felt the raw power of the being and understood why Elara had been cautious. Nareth circled the chamber. His body glowing with energy, Elara's image appeared beside him, and she extended her hand as if greeting an old friend. The dragon lowered his head and made contact with her hand in a gesture of recognition. Evan felt a wave of relief wash over him, knowing that the bond between them had not been broken by time or distance. The next days were a blur of preparation and learning. Evan worked closely with Elara to awaken more of the ship's systems. The corridors and chambers came alive with moving lights and machinery that responded to his commands. He learned to read the energy flows, understand the alien sequences, and anticipate the reactions of the systems around him. Each day he felt stronger and more connected. To the silent giant and the dragon, Elara explained that Nareth's awakening was only the beginning, that the true challenge would come when the forces seeking the ship arrived. She told Evan stories of past wars of dragons and elves, of civilizations lost and reclaimed, of battles fought among the stars. The knowledge was overwhelming, yet he absorbed it eagerly, knowing that it would be needed soon. One night, as Evan rested in the glow of the chamber, he heard a distant sound unlike any wind or desert noise. It was a deep roar, a call that resonated with the energy of Nareth and the ship. He felt the connection between himself, Elara, and the dragon deepen. He understood that the awakening had reached beyond the silent giant and into the wider world. The energy of the ship and the dragon had stirred ancient forces lying in wait. Evan began to feel a sense of destiny. He was no longer a simple mechanic. He was a participant in an event that could change the fate of the world, and perhaps the galaxy. His hands moved with precision as he adjusted the controls in response to Elara's guidance and the dragon's movements. He began to anticipate the flows of energy instinctively, as if the ship itself had become a part of him. The nights in the desert became filled with light and sound. The dunes reflected the glow from the ship and the dragon above, casting long shadows across the sands. Evan often found himself gazing at the stars, imagining the places Nareth and Elara had come from. The thought filled him with wonder and humility. He realized how small he had been before this encounter, and how much he had grown. With each passing day, the bond between the trio grew stronger. The silent giant responded to Evan's touch and command as if recognizing him as a guardian. The dragon's movements were synchronized with the ship's systems, and Elara's presence guided the energy flows in harmony. Evan felt a sense of unity with beings and machines beyond anything he had known. As the week drew to a close, the air around the desert seemed charged with anticipation. The hum of the silent giant grew louder, and the light from the crystal core intensified. Evan knew that soon the outside world would notice the awakening, and that challenges would come. Their combined strength was growing, yet the uncertainty of what lay ahead filled him with cautious determination. In the quiet moments before dawn, Evan stood on the dunes, looking at the glowing ship and the sleeping dragon. He felt a sense of peace, knowing that he was part of something greater than himself. A whisper echoed through his mind, a voice soft, melodic, and familiar. "You are ready." Evan nodded, knowing that the trials and wonders ahead would require all his courage and all his heart. The awakening flame had begun, and he was at the center of it. The awakening of Nareth and the silent giant had not gone unnoticed. Distant sensors picked up the energy pulse, and soon human forces began to move toward the desert. Mercenary scientists and soldiers arrived in vehicles and ships seeking the source of the mysterious signal Evan watched from the dunes as the first reconnaissance drones appeared glinting under the sun. Their presence filled him with unease, yet also with determination. He knew that he could not let them reach the silent giant before he understood its purpose. Elara appeared beside him, glowing softly. Her image projected from the heart of the ship. She spoke calmly, yet firmly. "You must help me protect this place." Evan nodded, knowing that the work ahead would require all his courage. The dragon Nareth circled above his massive wings, casting shadows over the dunes. The ground seemed alive with energy, as if the ship and dragon were preparing for the arrival of intruders. The first wave of vehicles approached the dunes, and Evan felt the vibration of their engines through the sand. He followed Elara's guidance, adjusting controls and activating defensive systems that had lain dormant for centuries. Panels along the hull shifted and lights flared, sending blinding signals across the desert. The drones faltered and the mercenaries looked on in confusion. The silent giant was awakening fully and responding to their presence. Evan felt a surge of fear and excitement as he moved through the control chambers of the ship, following Elara's instructions. He understood that this battle would be different from any human conflict he had known. It was not just steel and weapons, but energy and willpower connected to ancient intelligence, and a living dragon Nareth swooped down from the sky, his roar echoing across the desert. The mercenaries opened fire, but their weapons were no match for the dragon or the systems of the silent giant. Plasma beams and pulses of energy struck the ground, forcing vehicles to retreat. Evan watched as the desert became alive with light and fire. His heart raced, yet he felt a strange calm knowing that they had the power to protect themselves. Elara guided Evan to the main console, showing him how to release energy pulses. In precise sequences, the ship responded to his touch as if recognizing him as a partner in defense. The corridors hummed with power and the lights moved like living veins through the metal. He began to understand the bond between the elf and her, dragon and the ship itself. Each action he took had a direct impact on the battle outside. The mercenaries regrouped and attempted a larger assault. Their machines were faster and heavily armed, yet the silent giant anticipated their moves. Evan and Elara worked together to manipulate energy fields and create barriers. Nareth flew above, raining fire and light upon the intruders. The desert burned, yet none of them could reach the heart of the ship. Hours passed, and the battle raged. Evan was exhausted, yet driven by a sense of purpose. He had never imagined being part of something so grand, so dangerous, and so alive. He could feel the connection between himself, the ship, and the dragon, guiding every decision and movement. His mind raced as he predicted enemy actions and coordinated responses with Elara. Amid the chaos, Evan discovered a hidden console deep within the ship. Its purpose was unclear, yet Elara urged him to activate it. He hesitated for a moment, then followed her guidance. As he entered sequences of energy and light, a pulse spread outward, revealing hidden chambers beneath the dunes. Evan realized with awe that there were dozens of ships buried beneath the sand, an entire fleet waiting to awaken. The arrival of the fleet shifted the balance of power. The mercenaries and their machines faltered in confusion. They had not anticipated such strength, nor the presence of ancient technology combined with living beings of immense power. Nareth circled above each movement. He made causing panic among those who dared approach the silent giant, moved in synchronization with its dragon and human ally. Elara appeared beside Evan, her image strong and commanding. "You are doing well," she said. "Your courage is rare among your kind. Keep going and the fleet will awaken." He nodded and continued entering commands, activating energy sequences, and guiding the flow of power through the ship. He felt as though he were dancing with ancient forces, each move precise and necessary. As night fell, the desert was illuminated by the combined power of the silent giant and the awakening fleet. Lights flashed across the dunes and Nareth's flames lit the sky. The mercenaries attempted a final push, yet they could not reach the command center. Their vehicles stalled and weapons failed. Evan watched in awe as the power of the ancient technology and the dragon worked in harmony to defend what was theirs. The battle subsided as the dawn approached. The intruders retreated confused, and defeated. The silent giant stood tall and powerful, the fleet beneath the sand alive with energy waiting for the next command. Evan and Alara looked over the desert landscape. The dunes were scorched, yet the victory was theirs. Their bond had proven strong, and the ancient forces had recognized Evan as an ally and guardian. Evan felt a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and exhilaration. He understood that this was only the beginning of a larger conflict, yet he also felt a deep satisfaction, knowing that he had contributed in a meaningful way. He was no longer a mere observer. He was part of the legacy of Alara, her people and their dragon companion, Narithas. The sun rose over the desert, the sky filled with colors reflecting the energy of the awakened fleet and the silent giant. Evan looked up at Narith circling above, feeling a deep connection and understanding. The war beneath the stars had begun, yet they had proven their strength and courage together. The bond between human, elf and dragon was forged in fire and light, and nothing could break it. The desert lay quiet under a sky still shimmering from the battles that had raged. The silent giant and the awakened fleet stood as guardians of a secret older than humanity. Evan stood at the edge of the command chamber beside Alara and watched. Narith soared high above the dragon's wings, scattered light across the sands, and the glow of the ancient ships beneath them gave the world an otherworldly beauty. The victory over the initial intruders had been hard won, yet Evan knew that the true threat was yet to arrive. The Harvesters. The beings Alara had warned about in her stories would not ignore the pulse of energy that had awakened Narith and the fleet. Their return was inevitable, and the desert was only a temporary sanctuary. Alara appeared solid beside Evan, projecting a calm and unwavering presence. She guided him through the final preparations of the fleet and the silent giant. He adjusted energy flows and calibrated the weapon systems under her guidance. Feeling the rhythm of the ship and the dragon, he began to anticipate reactions before they happened. Each action required precision and focus, and Evan was determined to succeed. Days passed as they worked together. The fleet slowly emerged from beneath the dunes, a line of ancient ships powered by the energies that had been dormant for centuries. Each ship hummed and glowed under the desert sun. Evan could feel the pulse of their collective power vibrating through the ground. Narith circled above as if testing the air and preparing for the coming storm. Finally, the dark shapes appeared on the horizon, ships unlike any Evan had ever seen. They moved with intent and malice, consuming energy as they approached the planet. The Harvesters had arrived. Their presence brought a chill to the air, and Evan felt the weight of what was to come. Alara turned to Evan. "Your courage has brought us this far," she said. "Now we must fight together. The dragon will lead the assault, and the silent giant will protect the fleet. You will coordinate with me and guide the flow of energy through the ships. I trust you." Evan nodded, feeling a mixture of fear, determination, and resolve. The battle began as the Harvesters opened fire. Their energy beams tore through the air, causing explosions and fire in the desert. Evan and Alara worked in tandem, adjusting shields and directing power. Narith swooped down, raining fire and plasma across the invaders. The fleet moved as one under Evan's guidance, each ship responding to his commands as if they shared a single mind. Hours passed in a blur of movement and energy. The desert became a battlefield of light and fire. The ground shook with each impact, and the sky was filled with streaks of energy. Evan felt every vibration, every pulse, as if the silent giant and Narith had become extensions of himself. He realized the truth of what Alara had said. Courage and heart were as important as skill and power amid the chaos. Evan discovered a weak point in the invaders' formation. He relayed the coordinates to Alara, and together they focused the energy of the fleet and the dragon on that point. A concentrated pulse of light shot through the air, striking the Harvesters' ships. The impact caused a chain reaction, and the enemy began to falter. Their energy drained and their formations broke apart. Narith flew low over the dunes, his roar echoing across the battlefield, sending fear into the hearts of the remaining invaders. The silent giant released a surge of energy, from its core reinforcing the defenses of the fleet. Evan adjusted the channels, guiding the flow precisely. He could feel the culmination of their combined power surging through him. As dawn approached, the final remnants of the harvesters retreated. The desert lay silent except for the hum of the silent giant and the soft roar of Nareth. The battle had been won, but Evan knew that vigilance was necessary. The awakened fleet and the dragon had proven their strength. Yet the universe held many. Danger's Alara appeared beside him one last time, projecting a serene presence. "Your work has saved this world," she said. "Your courage has proven invaluable." Evan felt a deep satisfaction, knowing he had played a role in the defense of something so ancient and powerful. Nareth circled high above, releasing a stream of light across the dunes. Evan watched the dragon and felt a bond that would never be broken. He understood that he had been chosen not by chance but by heart and spirit. His connection to Alara and the silent giant had changed him forever, with the desert quiet once more. Evan stood on the dunes looking at the fleet beneath the sands. He felt a sense of responsibility and purpose. He knew that he would continue to watch over the silent giant, the dragon, and the awakening ships. The legacy of Alara and her people had been entrusted to him. As night fell, the stars reflected off the dragon's scales and the hulls of the ancient ships. Evan felt a final whisper in his mind, "You are ready." He smiled, knowing that the world had changed forever, and that he had become part of a story larger than any he had known. The dragon's return had come, and humanity had been given a glimpse of wonders and powers beyond imagining. The silent giant glowed softly in the dunes, and Evan knew that he and Nareth and the fleet would stand guard together forever.